to look and possibly put a down payment on, and then the next meeting we can, I don't know.
So do we have, so we should have had money already in there
Sure.
from last
We do
year's.
have some, but not enough. However, I mean, like you said, if he's going to like hold it for like $500 and the city council wants to commit, then it's already in the budget for the following year. However, we are going to have to amend the budget for 25. So it's not out of the question that we can amend the budget and account for that and make the adjustment. So if the council, I would more so encourage a, roll call approval before any contract signed, of course, just following your purchase procedures.
Yeah.
Or not roll call approval, but council approval.
Yeah.
But because it's not specifically spelled out in your budget. Right.
I see no objections to it, Bryce.
Yeah.
I think that's something great that we should have. And I don't know where he wants to park it at, but they have expanded, the shop area. So there would be plenty of room, I think, to park it in that parking lot, and it's secured with a fence. So I think it should be safe, and I would be in favor of
I
it.
think was thinking is over in that area, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe ask him, because like Cammie said, if it would be something that we could put some money down, and then, if we don't have enough this, but like July seems like a long ways away, but we can amend the budget.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, you would need approval before you could technically buy it. But if, you wanted to put like $500 down on the condition that it's refundable, provided the council doesn't approve it or something like that, then we can either put it in, you can get council's approval before and then buy it before the June 30th deadline, and then we'll just include it in the amended budget when we amend it, or you can wait till July 1st and use those monies there. I mean, either way, you're likely going to have the approval.
Because when our next meeting then is June 5th, which isn't that far away. So,
I try to figure out why it's not getting equals YouTube.
We're a city, so they would know we would.
Our
It's not
our
like
IT
somebody that would
IT
say we
guys
wanna
trying
buy
to
it, and then we're not.
change us all, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So
And then we could put it on the agenda and then get,
You're good.
council to vote on that.
Okay,
I think that sounds great. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're good.
So we never officially called this meeting to order, but we will call this as a budget work meeting that we're going to be doing. Today is May 22nd. We are happy to have all of you here, happy to have Cammie here, those residents that are here with us. So we're going to go ahead and start with Cammie, and then we'll go through questions.
So I just wanted to point a couple things out regarding the budget for you. You've got a copy of the tentative in front of you, just so that you're fully aware. The budget is, if you do not pass a budget by June 30th, then you cannot distribute any payments out of the city. So just keep that in mind, that our goal tonight is to try and come up with a budget that hopefully everybody on the council can vote yay for, because that is our main goal with this budget. The other thing to keep in mind is we are looking at the budget and the budget numbers, not how they are administered. Keep in mind that your administration of your budget is governed by your ordinances, not the budget itself, like each dollar amount. If you have a problem with how something's being administered, I encourage you to more so look at your ordinances and make a change to your ordinance on maybe the wording or how it's being, or educate people on how it's being used. The ordinance is the way that it's administered, not the budget itself. So we need to come up with a budget that we can all feel good about and hopefully be able to feel comfortable that this is a budget that the city can operate on, and then keep those thoughts about, the administration of it. That is a separate situation. And I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to advise you on how to write your ordinances. I would encourage you to look at your ordinances, maybe see if they need rewritten, or see if there needs to be education on how they are written. So keep that in mind that those are kind of two separate things. Okay. And so I would encourage you to bring up any issues that you would have with any numbers or any questions or concerns that I might be able to help you either answer or get the information so that you can feel comfortable with the numbers in the budget and we can continue to operate as a city.
One thing right off the bat. So I received today the interlocal agreement, and this will come up at city council meeting, but it pertains to the budget. So this is pertaining to the Roy Hillside Senior Center. And so in this interlocal agreement, there is one for Hooper and there is one for West Haven. And this is again, something that we will have to decide, but it has the initial contribution will be $4,000 for annual maintenance. And then it talks about an annual increase could be the next fiscal year could be plus 3% to count for inflation. So that's something we had talked about before. They've asked for a 3-year contract, which not necessarily we need to do that, but how it pertains to the budget is, and we do have $4,000 in there for the seniors, but along with that, oh, and I gave you my thing and I'd made myself some notes. It was almost $2,000 for the lunches because we have $11 once a month that we pay. We were doing it for 15 people. So it came to, you'll probably see mine because I have, no. Okay, thank you. That's okay. So that came from $1,980. So I think in our underneath the senior lunches, we have Roy 4,000, but I didn't necessarily see where we had in our budget for what we provide, which is the 1,980.
And we probably, did we consider that as part of maybe the community event education?
I don't know. I couldn't remember if we did, but anyway, so I just wanted to bring that up because this will be on our next city council meeting for us to approve. You know, we'll have to approve the interlocal agreement before we sign it as it is, but that's what that amount is 4,000.
Was that the amount that people were getting donations for this last year?
No, this 4,000 was for
I mean, the other.
Oh, the 1,980. Yeah. So what it is the meals are $15 a piece. They, when all the seniors come, they pay $4. They have enough donations that they pay for the meal once a month. The city pays the meal once a month, but we only pay $11 because then they pay, you know, when the residents come, they put in their $4. So if you take $11, you times that, we plan on 15 people. We don't always have 15, but we sometimes do. So 11 times 15 times 12, you come up to the $1,980. And that is for the ones we do here 2 times a month, and those are on Thursdays.
So do you think they'll allow us just to go year by year? Just because things might happen.
I would feel more comfortable year by year. I don't know that I want to commit to a 3-year, but I think we would be fine for a year.
Well,
And
yeah,
I think we already approved it for a year. That's what I thought too. And I was surprised when I saw it in here. I'm pretty sure though it says a 3-year, but let's see. Well, it says the interlocal agreement may be terminated any time upon 6 months prior notice, but it says this interlocal agreement shall be for a period of 36 months, commencing July 1st. But we could terminate at any time if we gave him 6 months. So I don't know. I haven't sent this to Brandon yet because I wanted to ask you about it, and then I can send him. So maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe they just want the interlocal agreement to be a 3-year, but if we can terminate it at any time, we're probably fine. So going back to the budget, you know, I don't know if we need to then have.
I would just encourage us to use that 5,000. That's education.
Okay.
So.
But if we do that, we're taking out 2,000. That only gives 3,000 for community events. Or do we want to increase that 5,000 number to a 7?
Now, what exactly are we using that for? That's,
besides the senior
yeah,
lunches.
and that's what I'm.
Yes, sometimes there's been other things. Yeah,
Like a help.
yeah.
helpers.
We have the health fair in
But we
there.
have broken
Um,
more things out this year.
yeah.
In the past, they had always
General.
lumped.
Uh-huh.
Things were so lumped. And so we've tried to break things out to give more information. Like you'll see by Halloween haunt, wasn't a budget there. And honestly, that's one thing we'll have to amend because we did break it out, but we'll rob Peter to pay Paul, I think.
Yeah, 'cause it was in there. It wasn't, yeah.
Because we're trying to give more information. We're trying to make it more helpful to say, okay, Halloween haunt, you have $5,000 to put on this Halloween. You have 3,000 or 4,000 for the Easter egg hunt, you know, instead of just saying, here's a lump sum, do what you can with it, you know. We're trying to get more detailed information and be more specific. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'll see that things are broke out a little bit more just to try and provide a different.
So I
additional
guess-
information.
Thing for community events. We've talked about maybe like for the 4th of July, maybe doing something. I don't know that we will, but you know, if we decided to do a breakfast, we'd probably get a group to come in. I mean, if there was any, like if we decide to do something for veterans, I think that 5,000 just gave us a little bit of a cushion. If there was anything else throughout the year that we did do, we don't have anything necessarily planned right now, but there could be something. Yeah.
You know, just kind of a couple other capsules because there's always those little things.
Mhm.
When you have everything, you know, listed individually, there's nothing to keep you from taking money from one activity to another, or that could just. So who,
Yeah.
who would
So-
track that, or?
So on your, well, okay, so the state, they would look more so at this in this line item right here, this in
Blue.
of recreation. Yeah, the blue one. And they would say, are you within budget within that category? So those categories have to be within budget. The idea is that hopefully line by line, you're staying more in budget, by providing more information and that, but you know, it's kind of like with the scenario of your public works. Okay, so maybe they have a certain amount for slurry seal, a certain amount for road cracks or something. Anyways, is it where's the money better spent? As long as they stay, you know, you want to let that department head make those decisions. So if the department head within the recreation and community events says, okay, we want to not spend as much on the Easter egg hunt, maybe we cancel the Easter egg hunt. Okay, well then that frees up some extra funds. You know, not saying that's what we would do, but we would just, you know, be able to, you leave it more to that department to manage the line items as long and manage themselves, hopefully. And that's how the state looks at it. Again, if the council wants something different, then you can certainly, you know, change that. But I do caution to be careful because sometimes that is nitpicky to always have to amend your budget every time you turn around to let your department heads make decisions.
Well,
That benefits the city the best.
and Erin's really good at keeping track. Dale, you asked who does. So I know like with the Easter egg hunt, we said, okay, this is your budget. And she was really careful because she came and said, okay, you know, I have this much, we can do this or this. And then it's always approved, you know, Morgan reviews that. I mean, it's something.
So
that's
really,
always-
we're not amending the line items, it's just amending the, yeah.
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 Yeah, the state auditor looks more at the category than the line item.
And we're probably fine with that. And we don't know. We could leave the 5,000, do the senior lunches and see. I mean, like I say, we don't really have anything planned. And I think if we did do something and we stay within budget, right? If we only have 5,000 there and we know that 2,000 is going to be for the senior lunches, then we say, okay, we only have 3,000. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, we know, or
Yeah.
if it's not gonna work, then you just stay within that. Or come to council.
Now, one question I have is, when these monies are being spent or decided on, who does all those decisions?
So your purchasing policy dictates that, and that's an ordinance. So your ordinance, and I don't have it right here with me, so don't quote me on it. But I believe it's anything over 5,000 needs approval from, is it the council? That's what my understanding was, without reading the actual purchasing policy. So,
One thing I noticed is the rental property, is that on here anywhere?
I'm not sure that we were accounted for that. That's a good point, because we weren't sure how much we were gonna be receiving for that.
Have we gotten any money?
Yeah, so they've switched their online system, so they finally have sent the funds for it. And I want to say we've collected 12,500.
What is it?
12,500.
Are we housing?
It's 2,000.
Minus their.
Minus their
So
cut.
$18.
Yeah.
Are we actually going to plan on continuing to rent? Is that a constant source of income, or is that something that,
I mean, I think that's what we were doing until we could get the other home. And then,
okay,
and then we were gonna turn that whole area into,
For the rodeo expansion.
yeah.
My thought
We would
that
get
is-
rid of both houses at that.
That 1,800, it's not gonna obviously be enough. That's chances here, but take that money and just set it aside to purchase the home. We're gonna have a pretty strong opportunity on that.
nothing?
And it'd be nice to get that one, then we could really, do something.
I think that's a great idea.
Kevin, while you're on that, I hate to be just, you're probably really sick of me, I know you are, but that's okay. I know you, but most people are. I'm gonna bring up the utility franchise. So let's go by this year's numbers, 392,000. So that's this year ending, that's what we've.
Mhm.
Let's plug in the 5%, which is 19,600.
As the expenditure is what you want to do?
Was what, yeah, because
Okay.
it should be 5%.
Yeah, I think,
And we have, let's see, we got May and June. I don't know if there's any more.
what if we just took whatever the budget is and times it, so it'd give,
20.
yeah, the 20,000, that's that 5%. And then that just cut and dry on that. Okay. I am great. No, you're just fine. On that, I love it. You're just fine. No. So, let me put that in there. Where did it go? Now it's hiding from me.
What are you looking for, Cammy? Can we help you look?
Makes me sick watching it.
Yeah, sorry, don't
Scroll
watch it for a
further.
second while you scroll.
Makes
Oh,
me
right
sick.
there. I just found it. Okay. I'm just gonna make it a flat out formula. There we go. There you go. So,
And we still had that 9,600 we left in there, so we could take that out and then you have that money to use somewhere else,
Well, I guess it's technically not that funds. Just roll over.
so
How do you do that?
with, meaning the 20,000?
No.
No.
Oh.
So we have
9,600.
Right now, yeah.
Oh, within that.
This is-
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a good point, because yes, you do have a reserve. And as of, let me grab, I have March's. I thought I grabbed April's off my desk. Oh, yes, I did. Okay. I was like, I thought I grabbed both months. So, right now, you have 17,000. So in theory, you have 17,000 more. So plus,
So
yeah.
if we don't spend it.
Mhm.
So we could buy the trade.
we're gonna buy it.
But we would have to still do a budget amendment because we
Yeah.
don't have it budgeted as an expense.
Yeah,
It's just being reserved.
Yeah.
Or not reserved, but earmarked.
Yeah.
So,
that 9,600 Cammy was under, it's the, under this emergency management and it was this 10421110.
yeah, right there,
Yeah, that we
under
just,
public safety. Do we
Yeah.
want to rethink that and put it under the same spot as we've got the cert? so that it kind of can help each other. That is an option council would have.
And there's some money if we needed to put 2,000 into that community education to pay for the senior lunches. And that would still give a little money that if we need to use it for something else. I mean, should we just leave it as a placeholder till we get done talking and then decide if there's anywhere else we need to move it to?
Yeah, we can do that.
And that's always an easy amendment as well.
Yeah,
If, you know, we do amend, it's always nice when you can amend and say, we're just grabbing from this place to put
Yeah.
to this place, you know? And that's often what I look at and say, okay, well, could we say there's less in it here to cover this, you know?
Yeah.
So if we did do an amendment, it's not a painful amendment. So if that makes sense.
I know this is a small amount, but I was curious, what's the clothing allowance for? Is that for shop coats and things like that?
Yes, yeah, the council had expressed a desire to like allow the employees to be able to buy like a pair of boots or something like that, so that, you know, to kind of help with morale, but at the same time allow them to have some of the maybe steel toe boots or something that they need for their job type thing. So yeah,
Just for
yeah, no, good questions. Great.
tutus or?
Yeah. I think we know where we can get some used ones. In your garage. Any other questions, or do you want me to go into detail on anything? Is there, I know some people had asked me some questions about the wages, which is a great question. So I did pull up this little section of the spreadsheet, so you can kind of see that we went through, and these numbers up here is just the number I'm referring to for the department or where the expense is going to go. But you can see that we relooked at things and said, okay, like 70% of Jared's wage should go into public works, and maybe 20% should be sewer and 10% stormwater. And we went through these with Jared in detail and just said, Jared, you know, what do you foresee? What do these employees really do? Where do they spend their time for real? And also, because we're breaking out those 3 enterprise funds instead of all lumping them together, we wanted to say, you know what, obviously we have to do billing for all 3. We probably ought to consider some of Monica's time into all 3. And so we allocated her time accordingly and such, so that everybody comes up with 100%, but we're relooking at where the time is spent and where their wages, the portion of their wage is at. So we did go through that in quite a bit of detail with Jared and had a really good discussion on that. And I feel like it's definitely a lot more accurate. Unfortunately, it's really hard to change things like that mid-year. So the idea is July 1st, I'm going to log in and Morgan's going to see a whole new allocation stuff. And I'm going to go through and fix, you know, all the allocations so that everybody is allocated in the software appropriately. Okay.
And what did we decide their raises or compliments?
So right now we have given a 3% cost of living and then a possible 3% merit. Again, that is something that I would encourage you to more so look at, you know, what your ordinance is on your employee raises or what your decisions are. And then that way you can make a decision on how you really want to administer it. The idea was that more so with that 3% that the employees were going to have to set a goal and try to meet that goal, such as like a class A CDL or some additional training or a notary or something like that. They had to do something to get that merit. All we're doing is giving a marker in the budget so that, and we have to kind of mark everybody, because what if everybody got it, you know? So we kind of mark everybody that they would get that. Hopefully, we would hope our employees would take advantage of it and say, you know what, 3% is worth me going and getting my CDL, or 3% is worth me getting my notary, or whatever it may be.
So that, for example, going to get a CDL, is certainly taking a lot more effort.
Yeah, and that,
So
and that's
Based on
administration.
position.
You know,
There's some responsibilities just take more time, take more effort on the employee, but yet if the merit amount they receive is equal, that doesn't.
absolutely, it does make it hard to administer. And so, you know, maybe you ask them to not only get their notary, but something else as well, or, you know, improve on something that they're feeling, you know, that they're not always doing or something like that. You know, it's just a way that you can say, I'm trying to motivate you to do a little bit more to earn a little bit more as an employee. And that's up to you guys how you administer it. Again, that would be, you know, the administration of your employee type stuff you would want to look at within like your ordinance. That's not budget. So that is kind of two separate mechanisms. But for budget purposes, we're giving the option that money's actually there. Does that help?
So they could get up to 6%.
They could get up to 6%, not saying that everybody would, or that, you know, but those are just some ideas as far as how it should be administered has been thrown around, not saying it has to be that way. Maybe it's a ranking system, maybe it's something like that, but, you know, I would encourage you to get together in a separate mechanism to determine how you're going to take care of those, not necessarily look at it as a budget. Does that make sense? I'm saying that.
I think that's where my concern is, not
Yeah.
necessarily, you know, compensated, but like how do we administrate that?
Yeah.
Make it fair, like getting CDL would be, or maybe there's, we can do this, this, or this, and they're equally hard to get, or.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I see it, there's a possibility of causing division within the employees, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing up some concerns, but I'm not.
Very valid concerns. And I think those are age old concerns that every entity, every business, every.
Let's create a fund to maybe pay for the CDL class or the notary class, but do we want even the extra 3% because of that reason?
Because they talk. And
How much, Tammy, potentially, how much dollar amount would that be?
Because
No.
it's gonna be a lot more than some. It's just.
So I will tell you overall, the 3% cost of living and the 3% merit would cost the city a total overall in all departments, including benefits, of about $47,000. And then you have your additional sewer person that you wanted me to throw in, so that's 89. So your total wages and benefits, we're looking about 137-ish.
6%.
For the full 6%, you're looking about 47 is the effect on the city for that increase on your budget. So, you know, now granted, it's spread out through various departments. For example, we've got, you know, administration, it would hit 84, public works.
Could it be that some of them that aren't quite so? I mean, could it be like 1 or 2% or something that's not as time consuming?
Well, and
I
it
think
probably,
something you could
it
decide to.
probably,
as
yes, would be
administrative.
something like that, because so like, for example, Jared and I, we've talked about this a lot because we would like our employees to have their CDL licenses.
Mhm.
We feel like that really is something, even for insurance, they should have their CDL. Well, it's really hard to tell an employee, you go out and pay for this. So we thought, well, if the city paid for it and this was their merit increase, so the city will pay for you to get your CDL. And so it's not that they're going to get paid 3% more, that 3% will pay for their CDL license.
Okay.
So we will do the training. So they will come so we have talked to, it's a highway patrol that will come and offer this class for all of ours. So we will take whatever that 3% is to pay him. So then they have their CDL. If they choose not to do that, then Jared said he would come up with something else, then that could be a merit increase for them. So for example, like Darren, who maybe doesn't need to have a CDLA license, but he needs to have his sewer license. So then the city will pay that amount for him to have, that will be his merit, that you get your sewer license. Maybe that only takes 2%. So if you get that, then you're going to get a 1% increase after the city has paid for him to get that license.
Okay, that's a lot better.
Yeah, so
That's what's getting. the
so
pay raise.
no,
Yeah.
so everybody will be looking at it. So Jared will go through his men and say, okay, I feel like all of these men maybe need a CDLA. Maybe these ones only need a CDLB, but if they have a B, then maybe there's something else. Like maybe there's tests that they offer and license you can get as far as spraying pesticides. Maybe that will be it. So all of it is going to be something that we feel like will, yeah,
And
will
then
make
if
them
they
more
choose not to
beneficial.
do Training, they don't get it.
Exactly, exactly. And then it
Right.
could be the same with Morgan over this, the employees in the staff, you know, in the office. Then she could say, okay, if you go get this cell training, for example, that they pay X amount of money for Monica to go get this Cassell training. She passes all of her tests. The city's paid her 2%, then maybe she gets a 1% merit increase because she's done that.
Okay.
So it's not that just we're going to just off the top say, hey, we're going to,
So we can include a merit with the training, because some people will get it and some people won't. And that merit, that 1%, even if that's all it is, lasts forever. That doesn't just, it's not just a one-time thing, it's an ongoing expense, right? So we either gotta do it as training or salary increases, but not both.
but if somebody, for example, they go to do a license, like we absolutely have to have another employee here that has their sewer license. We absolutely have to. Because Jared's not going to be here forever. And when Jared if he retires, we don't have anybody in Hooper City that owns a license for our sewer. So that could be a benefit to Darren to go get that done. And then maybe if he passes that, even if he gets a 1% salary increase, maybe he should now because he has that license. But again, I think that would be up to Jared.
Ryan's.
Yeah.
Separate a line item
Mhm.
that says training, not,
Salary increase.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and you know, what I would encourage going forward is maybe looking at positions, and the council says, okay, we're going to look at these positions and this is the positions we approve. And if they have this training, then we will pay them this pay range. If they have this training, we will pay them this pay range, you know? So it's more of a position looked at, approval, but unfortunately, we're not at that point to be able to do that. Going down the line, again, like I've, said, oh, it'd be great if we could include our fee schedule and every year just approve our fee schedule as part of the budget. That's a goal that we're going towards, but we can't, just fix everything overnight. We've got to take baby steps along the way.
What if the 3% is only a training merit increase then? They can only use that 3% for some kind of training or licensing or something else.
So they can only, that 3% is training, not
Yes.
Salary increase.
salary increase. And I can certainly break that out. And
23,000 would be a potential training budget line.
Budget.
Yeah.
And then I can break it out into each department and say, this is a trainee. So really, we have no merit increase is what you're actually telling me you would rather have. And then have a training line item with that 3%. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay. If you're,
Yes, it does.
If you're okay with that, I won't go through and do it right now because it's gonna be a little bit more detailed. And it's gonna take me a few minutes, but I'm happy to do it. So,
One of those employees did their training for 3 years, so later they're gone, and that opens that new person, if they're trained at that business, come in and out.
Wage.
Yeah, that wage, or do they?
That's where I would encourage the council to maybe look at approving each position and a wage range. Because then that would accomplish that in my thought. Maybe I'm missing it, or
Yeah.
I think that kind of
Because I would
fits.
see, with training and experience, you get a little bit of an increase.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, it's not like, somebody that's not certified at all, you hire them, they're, if you have somebody with a sewer certification, you're better off when you hire them to have them come in. Whereas if you've got to offer that certification, then it costs you some money up
One
front.
thing
Yeah.
we talked about too is if they get that, so they get their CDL, then have to sign something that said that guarantees they're going to stay with the city. We will pay that for 3 years or whatever we think
They
is
can't
right.
just get it and go.
No, and if they leave before then, they pay that back. So we're not just training someone to have their CDLA license and then they're done and they leave. So if they leave before X amount of time, like even after 2 years, then maybe they have to pay back 50% of it, or we prorate it or something that they have to sign, because we want to offer, this is the whole point. We want our employees to stay. We don't have a lot of money to pay our employees a lot of a high wage. We don't, but some of these trainings are really valuable. Have your CDLA license is really a valuable thing to have. So maybe if we do that, that will encourage them to want to stay.
Yeah, because then they would have caught the trailer brakes when lights weren't working, so I didn't have to call Steve yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
The trailer lights are not working on the back left side of the flat trailer at the top mower, just so you know.
Heads up, fix a ticket.
Didn't have your lights.
The health insurance really didn't.
Yeah, health insurance did go up. I'm trying to remember what percentage that was off the top of my head. You remember?
Everything's
It
getting
was,
so expensive.
and everybody's health insurance was just, I mean, and if you had more claims, I had saw them that went up even more because, it just is more claims. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's definitely, a benefit that employees often don't realize until they don't have it. But the health insurance is,
We have a good insurance too. PHP is really good.
yeah, PHP is a good insurance that is done by the state, and it's, it's definitely one of the benefits of being a city is that if you're in that PHP, you're in the group. And so they kind of assess you as a whole, kind of like the PPIF, the risk is as a whole instead of each individual as much. There's still some individual, but it's not as detrimental, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Do you want me to go through maybe some line by line things, or?
Debbie, I know you said you had some questions. Do you have other questions?
We've
We've
been on
had
the
a
phone.
couple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. so
Okay, did you
which
get
I hope
answers?
was helpful for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, overall, I'll just kind of maybe summarize, and if you have a question, by all means, please stop me. So, but overall, the city's, total income that we're budgeting is 4.1. And then if we look at the city's overall expenditures, right now, we would actually need to increase a little bit right here, to put that into, well, I'll do that in a little bit, but we would, basically what we do is we have to have what's called a balanced budget. So to make this balanced, we just basically transfer whatever excess we have into capital projects to say for those big projects, like our big projects that we have coming up, that we have accounted for, or maybe some equipment or something within the general fund. So right now our overall income, our expenses do outweigh our income. However, the reason why is because we have about $1 million, well, we have quite a bit of Class C roads money that is restricted. And, our roads are definitely in need of some spiffing up. I think we all would agree. So we have authorized through this budget, we would authorize the Public Works Department to spend some money. we would authorize them to spend $1 million of that on road projects, overlays, stuff that, you know, needs to be done to our roads. Again, we have that budgeted in different categories.
And
Um,
5,900 West project in there.
We do not, that's within the stormwater. We had determined we were not going to put that in at this point until a for sure number was more so decided upon. But that is within the stormwater, so very good question. But we basically authorized our Public Works Department to use some of those reserved Class C roads money to do some road repairs, like our resurfacing or potholes and such, to try and make some repairs. We felt was, you know, probably a really good idea to spend that money that way and get some of these concerns.
So the 5,900, then when we do it, when we have a number, we'll just have to transfer that money from capital projects and that will pay.
We
For
will
that.
actually then budget that. Oh, sorry, the 5,900. Sorry, I was thinking the one that was the storm drain.
That's
So
That
is that the one? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So
We're talking out here, right, out
the stormwater one.
around the curve.
the green.
Yeah.
Green Line.
Yeah.
Okay, so the stormwater one, we would have to make a decision at that point, once we get those funds, to do one of two things. We would either increase stormwater charges so that we could use, we would have funds going forward to fund that, or we could take a loan from our capital projects fund, or the city council could determine that they want to transfer money from capital projects fund to stormwater. You would get those, basically those three choices to fund it. Now, right now, you do have, I believe, enough in fund balance to fund that, but it pretty much drains that fund. So I would, of course, advise you not to completely drain that fund. That we would maybe want to at least partially fund it some other way or increase some of the fee more. Right now, we've got a $1 increase for the stormwater in the budget. So right now, yeah, you have about 990 in stormwater as your fund balance. So you would have enough, but it would pretty much drain. So probably not the ideal situation, if that makes sense.
Well, I told you I'd gone through all of our engineering, like line item by line item, and they're like on that number, like the storm water is significantly higher. And a lot of those are state mandated. We don't have a choice. So we have to do those reportings every single month.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. And we had that audit this year, and then we have those 83 findings. So
Which really, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I asked somebody that has experience with that, and he says 84, 83, that's actually not too bad. So
we were just kind of
considering the size of Hooper, he was surprised it wasn't higher. Let's put it that way.
Is 80,000 enough, 26 budget for general engineering? Or this year, 235.
Well,
We may want to,
but that's one thing, Bryce, I went through today, line item with all of our engineering accounts payable. So that the general really wasn't 230. Whoops, spilling my water. The general was actually 93,743.40. Stormwater was 127,555. Sewer, unless if they just didn't allocate that right, was 17,000, and capital projects. So this is the 5,500 was 165,233.91. Jared said, okay, but remember capital projects, you get that money back. Well, not all of it. We were a little bit in the hole from our 5,500. Yeah. But the general, he said, there's like the 1% fee. So this is like reviewing plans, but they get like every development has to pay that, you know, a percentage of that. So a lot of that we get back. But no, the stormwater. And I said, okay, what about this? And he said, these are state mandated that they have to do. So again, your question is, I don't know, because it was 93. If you go back past the years,
Stormwater, we have budgeted 30,000 right now. Maybe that might need to go up, but we were at the moment trying to be as realistic as we knew.
Well, it was that amount because of the audit.
Mhm,
We don't know the audit.
exactly.
yeah,
Hopefully, it's more so the just maintaining the standard that the audit has set now. So hopefully it wouldn't be as high. So we kind of said, you know what, let's try 30. Is that, do you want to increase that? But I mean,
I don't know.
unfortunately, we're all just kind of not knowing where we're gonna lie with that.
I don't know, because even back in 23 for stormwater, according to, the sheet you gave me, we spent 37,000. And then the next year it was 48,000. And I'm going to call them and get them to line item things better, because I had to go through every single page, because sometimes it was just classified as general engineering, but it wasn't. Because then when I would look through, it would say 5,500, it would say stormwater, so that took so I'm going to call them and say, we need this broken out better than that.
Yeah,
We need to
that's-
know exactly.
Yeah, that's a question. A few months ago,
Yeah.
requested that line.
Yeah.
and Stuff, so.
Yeah, and if you want to have, like I spent
I'll
a
get
few
with
hours today, but
Yeah.
we can get those to you. All the accounts payable, if you want a copy, we keep every bit of that. And they line item everything out. That'll say planning, and it tells you what subdivision. Like it'll say it was the Perez, the Bowers, the Rossin Ranch. They do that, but it's just then they kind of all got lumped as general engineering. So sometimes the 5,500, they were pretty good to separate those out. But
Just
as far
because
as
of
the
funding.
stormwater, it wasn't. That was not a category that, they itemized that on their bill, but then when we have like the coding, they didn't separate that out.
Yeah,
So,
that was one of my concerns, is that
yeah,
were they billing us for something that developers should be paying for? So I had no idea. Maybe since you did that, you could share that with us, but I don't know.
yeah,
That's one of my,
these are the numbers I came up, because that's when I went to Jared and I said, okay, Jared, and he said, yeah, those seem pretty right, because if you go back, like even as far back as, fiscal year 21, general engineering was 93,449. 22 was 99,926. That's pretty much what our general engineering was. Even after when we had Bryant, we still were paying about 100,000 to JUB, and then we were paying Bryant's salary on top of that. And that's what I came up with us this year, was 93,743 when I went through every page of their and separated them out. But yeah, you can look through those, but
So do
I
you
don't
want
know.
to increase that engineering fee then within stormwater? I mean, it sounds like you were saying though this year then that you've added up how much?
This year, when I added up from those, it was $127,555.53. But some of that was from the audit. Like that, they spent hours and hours on the audit. And I asked Jared specifically, and he said, some of these are state mandated. Like they have to inspect every single subdivision. There's things they do that he said, it's not like we're saying we want you to do this or we don't want you to do this. He said someone has to do it, and it is state mandated. It has to be. I don't remember exactly, because I just went through and added everything up. But I remember one time when I looked, it was several thousand, like maybe 27, like one invoice, and then the next invoice. And I have all my numbers are in that. But
So we kind of have a couple options in my thoughts, and again, if you have a different thought process than I do, by all means. But within the stormwater, what if we, at the moment, kept it at the 30, gave it a couple months, and then revisit it? Again, a budget is a guide, not a written in stone. And we may say with the stormwater audit, we have a lot more fees, or we may say, oh, guess what? We can start charging the developer a fee, you know, for their inspections, additional inspection fee or something like that, you know, that we might want to reevaluate as part of going through the fee schedule, because I know that's something that you're definitely wanting to go through and relook at, and that I highly encourage that. So we could just increase by $1 right now, and maybe, you know, October-ish or, you know, December-ish, we have another little meeting and say, hey, you know, where are we at? Where do we want to go? Do we leave it? Do we reconsider? What's your thoughts? What's everybody's thoughts on that? Please.
Well, and another thing too, we've never had a stormwater impact fee study.
No.
So if we do a impact fee study, we can start charging the developers. I mean, like Cami has said, they don't just allow us to charge money if we haven't done a study to prove that they are doing an impact. So we're losing money off of that because we're not. So that would be another thing. If we did the study, then we can start charging, adding that on, not to our existing residents. These are the new developments, then they pay that impact fee.
Was that, is that impact? Because one of the impacts was.
For parks. So we included the impact fee cost. We did not include any revenue, which would be, you know, something you would definitely to amend for. Right now we do have a parks impact fee and then the sewer impact fee. But the sewer impact fee is just the county's impact fee. It's not ours. And so I believe those are the only two, right? There might be more.
Yeah, just those two.
The sewer. Create the road. Yeah. It's fun.
Yep, and look at our parks.
And
because
look at the
Our
parks.
parks has been done for years and years.
Honestly, as soon as those are done, we will want to budget for that revenue. Now, granted, impact fees can only be used for a project that's specified in your impact fee plan, which is fine. And then, you know, but at least those developers are paying for the impact they're having on your city, the roads, the wear and tear, you know.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, it's frustrating because you do have to spend a lot of money up front to start collecting those. Very frustrating, but is it worth it in the end? In my opinion, hands down.
Yeah.
And as a, you know, I've always been very much developers need to pay what they cost a city.
I just have a question on the parks. What are these fees actually? I mean, like the park building maintenance,
Okay, so those are expenses.
right?
And basically the parks expenses, the maintenance and stuff, that would be like your, you know, having to fix a light bulb, having to fix a sink. Maybe somebody went in and changed or broke a sink in the bathroom, or hopefully not, but you know, those day-to-day type things. Yeah.
I'm just asking if you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we're trying to give more detail. So, you know, there's some of these things that we're trying to come up with a budget that hopefully gives a little bit more detail, but still stays within those realms. Does that
Yeah, and the
help?
trail maintenance,
everybody?
I can figure that.
Yes.
Just keeping those up. And then
Yeah.
what's the parks? Parks
Parks,
of them or?
parks equipment was more so the maintenance. I think,
It's like lawnmower, weed
yeah, I
eater.
think we were gonna do the lawnmower was in capital projects.
What was it?
Yeah, so that was more so just the maintenance because we do have an aging equipment, and they were just more so saying, okay, we need some funds to pay for the sprinkler, the equipment repairs more so is what
Yeah,
that item was.
They've got sprinklers and general
Mhm.
maintenance and everything up higher.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so that would be more the maintenance on the equipment. Yeah. Yep. Where does it end? Exactly. Any other? Okay.
maybe I'll jump over to capital projects because that kind of goes with the general fund. So overall, we will have to likely put some additional funds into capital projects. But again, the capital projects fund, the idea of that is that we can put money there and hold it and use it for big projects. So right now we do have a budgeted impact fee. We also have some ramp grants that we talked about, some monies coming from the 5500 West project, and then also some interest, and then our transfer in from the general fund. So we're estimating that we would have about 3.4 coming into the capital project fund.
Question.
Uh-huh.
What we want is to separate 55 project from the sell. Because they're two different projects.
We certainly could with the revenue. Right now, I've got it broke out in the expense area, but we could certainly do that in the revenue.
Just because this year's revenue is from the fourth project, next year's is going to be from sell.
I think you put to Davis, maybe up above, yeah.
Okay. So on this one, if I'm
So-
staying consistent down here, then I'm gonna say to, let's see, so it'd be this same project, 5500 South to Davis.
So just way of it, that project right there that she just put in there, we are about $1.9 million short. So we are going to apply to Wasatch Front Regional Council to see if we will get more money. Because when they applied for it, it ended up not being enough. And so she put in there how much we have. We have 2 grants. We have money coming from Wasatch Front Regional Council. We also have a HUD grant. But with that, we're still about 1.9 million.
Which is
Yep,
what two grants.
yep. But we actually, well, yes, but the expense of it when they went through is now like 4.2. Anyway, it was more than what, but we'll apply.
Do we have a
I mean-
table for when that will start? Or-
Well, they are planning on, they want to start like this fall. You know, it's already pretty much designed. That's when they designed it. Then they realized that we were short money. And so I just received that. And so then I said, okay, now what? And so they're reaching out to Wasatch Front to see how we apply. But they give more money all the time. I'm in those meetings every month and they always say, you know, by the time they allocated it, and we already have 500,000 in the budget for this project, which looks really good on our end because we already have money in there for it. And
I don't even know what's going to be.
that's when the engineering did the study now, that's what the amount came up with.
JV.
Yeah.
Shocker.
But they're not necessarily all the ones doing the work. They'll be like it was in the north. It's like Holson's is who ended up doing that project.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Significant.
So right now, in our capital projects fund, we do have 4.1 as our fund balance. And then we have 88,000 of that is restricted for our parks. So, you know, just about 380-ish that we've got. Or 3,000,080. Sorry. Get my decimals in the right place, or commas. So we've got a pretty good healthy fund balance. We're saying that we're going to bring in about 3.4 with the revenues, and then our expenses, would be about 3.8. So we would have a decrease in our fund balance of 4.4 or 404. But we definitely have enough in the fund balance to do that.
Which is actually not true. Yeah, we have medical need.
Yeah.
It's supposedly needed.
Yeah, but we'll get a grant. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
to what we're actually doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard.
And then we also have the possible 650,000 on 5,900.
So that includes, with it, we will have a parks mower, a zero turn mower. It gives us, some power upgrade at our parks. And, again, we're getting we have the expense, but we also have the income. So the net effect is only 3,000 for that power upgrade. Our bleachers, the net effect was 25,000 that comes out. And then the pickleball lawn was only 5,000 once we had with the net effect on that as well. And then fencing for the yard out in the public works. There's a concern of theft out there, so, and then we needed to do sprinklers, that we're being required to do, I believe by the,
At the cemetery.
yeah,
That's
at
part
the
of
cemetery.
pressurized system.
So that would be, oh, on this one, you don't have this one,
Oh.
sorry. So I apologize, my bad. I think it is in your
It's in the
binder,
binder
but yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, we didn't print it today for you, sorry. And then, our Class C projects, that we're looking at were those 2 road projects. So the net effect was about 840 on those.
I know we're trying to get this now to do the 4,600 up here, you know, where the road's caving in to pipe it. And also, but these are stormwater projects, and also the cemetery road that the pipe is rotted. So they're trying to get that fixed before it breaks but those were the 2, yeah. And then the only other thing was that sewer pipe that I brought up to you that we need to do it, but now they're only going to go to 4,000, so that should be less. But it still might be the cost of 400,000 or 500,000 to do that. But we don't know yet because we don't have those costs yet.
Well, the good side is if we work out in the cemetery, we might have to.
There you go. Except for it's 6,300.
Oh, dang it. I was trying to make a speed bump out of it.
So I got a question on that.
Yes.
Says CS development expense 13.5. So
Yeah.
did we pay for that?
They've been reimbursed.
Did
That-
they pay us?
But unfortunately, if you have money going out, we have to have a line item basically to offset, to account for that, so yeah.
Yeah, as soon as we got the total thing, we sent it to them. So.
Okay. Any other questions in capital projects? Everyone good about that one? Okay. Let's go stormwater since we've talked about it a little bit. Is that okay with everybody if I keep going from the back forward? Okay. So stormwater is the Fund 23. So basically, as we talked, we've got about 30,000 for engineering. We have accounted 120 for our impact fee study. We've also included some employee wages there, which I think is very appropriate. With all that, in order to fund everything but that impact fee study, basically, in order to end up with a $53,000 deficit, including that impact fee study, we would need to increase rates by $1. So we'd go from $5 to $6. Really, from my experience, that's not an unheard of stormwater fee for residents. I think if you sampled other cities, you'd find them much higher. So any questions or concerns on that fund?
Can I ask a dumb question about the wages?
Mhm.
I love you're breaking this out and it's. So in public works is splitting up their day, obviously, you don't want to micromanaging time cards, but are they allocating blocks of time like, hey, today we put this many hours into this, so at the end of the year, you actually get a fairly close number where those wages are?
I
Or
don't-
do they really spend it?
Usually what will happen,
If they're guessing, or if we're just sitting down and interviewing them, they're gonna remember the last 30 days of what they've done,
yeah.
not the full year.
It's pretty much, and that we went to Jared because it can change from day to day.
Sure.
Like whatever project they have, so they have they are replacing a section at a time down at the cemetery. So it was all hands on deck. They're all down there doing that. So Jared said, based on his experience with the men, this was as close as what he could tell. So the answer is no, they don't every day write down, okay, today I worked 2 hours on sprinklers, 2 hours on sewer, 4 hours I was out doing roads. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I get what you're saying. You don't want to micromanage, but could we get a better idea?
Feeling your numbers be skewed based on, it really isn't, it's like a performance review, right? That's the last gauge of performance on a full year.
Yeah, I would think they were, because Jared went over that pretty carefully and based on what they, because again, in the wintertime, they're working on something different than they are in the summertime.
Sure.
So, and you know, definitely the allocations have not been updated for quite a while, so we went to the best source we could think of to try and come up with those, and so. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Anything with stormwater? We ready to move on to garbage? Okay.
Does everyone feel okay about that with the dollar? Because after our budget is approved, then we have to pass, like last time, we had to do that resolution saying these are going to be our rates. And then we had that letter that, you know, I had drafted, and then you gave input that we send out to our residents, letting them know this is going to be the increase. So it will be a process, but just so you know, you're okay. And then again, it'll be the tentative, and then it'll be the final, and residents will have a chance to voice their opinion.
Okay, so if everybody's good, I'll jump to garbage. Okay, so garbage is Fund 22. So our total income, we have budgeted $854 for that. I'm sorry, I don't have a total in that other column. Let me fix that real quick, because that's gonna bug me. Okay. Like I don't have a total both places. My goodness. Way to go, call slacker. So our total income, the idea with garbage is that garbage is self-sustaining, that we would like, you know, whatever our fees are for our residents to, you know, be paid for by the garbage collection again. So our garbage income would be $854. Our operating expenses would be $834. Our employees would just be $18,500. And that, by doing that, we are actually positive by about $700, which is pretty dang close, I think. So with that, if we do that, you'll see right here in this little box on the screen that I've highlighted, that our current garbage first can, we're proposing that it goes from $13.50 to $15.50. Additional garbage would go from $9 to $10.50, and our recycling would go from $7.50 to $9.50. By doing that, that would cover the increase in our garbage collection, which is about 5%, which is pretty close to what they came back at.
So our garbage is going up about 15% for the first hand.
No, what was it, 750?
First can is $13.50, and we're proposing
$2. That's about 18%.
Yeah, not only did the garbage cans themselves go up, but the tipping fee also went up.
So it's really
Push that
a
along.
5% increase. If we go from 726 to 854, that's a lot more than 5%.
Right, 15%.
Is it mandatory to have a recycle can?
No,
Do we know if they actually recycle it?
they guaranteed me they did. I called and asked that question, and he told me they did.
I know, I've heard both things, like,
Yeah,
they don't really, they just dump it in the same place.
I know. I asked him that. I said, our residents have asked that. People say that you're not.
They do have
And
probably the best recycling. So they do the best at recycling.
but no, we don't have to have recycling. And our tipping fee didn't go up last year, but this year it did. But if you go over to the dump now, they've gotten a new Like there's two different lines now you can go through, and they've made another road so people don't get stuck with it on the tracks. I haven't been over to see it yet, but they gave us a big sales pitch when they said, and here you go, it's going on. Yeah.
15, 17, 27%. But we're only saying they're charging us 5% more.
Well, the one was what we were being charged by the garbage, but then you have to include the tipping fee as well.
So it's closer to 15% with the tipping fee.
Mhm.
Huge.
That's why last time we talked about sometime, maybe we could do a green waste out here in Hooper. You know, that might be something that we could look at. I mean, that won't happen, of course, this year, but maybe we could do a green waste. I think so too. Yeah. So that's something we could look into doing. Prices aren't going to go down, and some, like we talked about, and this is certainly up to you, but you know, some people, they do a small increase every year, or they wait every 4 or 5 years and then they have a big increase. And
We're just trying to get it to pay for it
yeah,
and not supplement it.
Right.
and to have just 700, that's about as close as you can get. I mean, well, and I think we tried to make them even numbers. I remember us talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been 1537 for a can, and
Number,
yeah,
you know, $14.99.
yeah.
But, in, you know, one way to look at it is if we do increase it and say we are a little high this year, well, we know fees aren't gonna go down. So next year we just won't increase it as much. We're not looking to make money with this fund. We're just trying to break even with the, you know, and not have other funds supplement it. And I think in the past, without the breaking it out, we didn't really know that. We didn't know if stormwater was supplementing it or sewer was supplementing it. So now we know garbage is paying for it. Does that make
We
sense?
do know that. It was.
The
That's pretty.
others were supplementing. Yes, we know.
Sewer department supplemented. Sure.
Well, that's what you always said. We were having Peter that paid Paul. No, Peter, you know, if Paul, you don't have enough money, you go get another job. I mean, that's the thing. We shouldn't, I mean, so I like now that we're breaking it out, that we see.
I'm not encouraging that we're trying to make a profit with.
No.
And like I said, if we end up with extra in fund balance and we say, you know what, we wanna maybe try and keep $20,000 in fund balance, and then from there, we wanna, you know, decrease rates, then by all means, let's not increase them. I'm not opposed to decreasing rates, but we just need to pay for itself is what I would encourage.
I was at a meeting the other day, and one of the mayors in Davis County said, hey, this is one of our money makers. We charge enough that we make money. And I said, no. I mean, we're not, that's not our goal, is to make money off of, I don't feel.
No, it's actually.
Yeah.
You can make money off of
Yeah.
it. I know other cities that have like a power department, and they transfer a substantial amount of money from their power department over to the general fund every year to supplement the general fund. Not the one I used to work for, but yes, I know of cities that do that. I should clarify that. So I'm getting in trouble.
Yeah, it wasn't that city either. And I can't remember now what city it was. And they said, oh, this is the way you make money. And I said, no.
My thought process is just each service should pay for itself,
Yeah.
you know. Sewer should pay for itself, garbage should pay for itself, stormwater should pay for itself. Unless you have a situation like a big project like with stormwater that we're running into, that we may need to borrow some money from the general fund to get it by, that's okay. But the idea is to have that mostly self-sustained.
And that being said, you could borrow from garbage and sewer to pay for a stormwater project. It's all in the utility fund, right?
Yeah.
We borrow it for 2 years. To balance each other out. So we could still do it even if we're separated.
Mhm.
So we could make money on to pay for sewer. Or-
We only have $700 though.
I mean, if we wanted to.
Yeah, if we wanted to, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but yes, you could. You very well could, yes. Down the line, if that's the route you wanted to go. So. Any further discussion or any questions on stormwater, or not stormwater, sorry, garbage? Get it right, Kevin. I don't have Diet Coke in my mouth tonight. Tried to be water.
That's all you need.
Trying to be good. Trying to go water.
Not the wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready for sewer? Anybody have anything else garbage? Okay, we will jump over to sewer. So sewer is one that we have spent a lot of time on and a lot of concern. And so right now we are proposing that we increase sewer rate. And the decided, I should know it. The decided rate that we wanted to increase them to was for the city to go up 6.25%, which would make it to be 48.87. And then this Central Weber Sewer District is increasing 6%, which would make theirs at 21.20. Therefore, our residents' bills would go from $66 to $70.80 or 8 cents.
That's not as bad as it was.
Yeah, we were able to kind of try and project it out over the next 5 years and try to come up with a good scenario as to where we would need to be to hopefully do some of these major repairs that we have brought to our attention. So I'm going to go over to this. You don't have this printout, but it is in your binder. Let me try and make that bigger here. Sorry. Is that better? Okay. So as part of this, we've gone through with Jared and said, okay, Jared, what's the emergencies? And he says everything. He said, okay, Jared, realistically, we can't do everything today. So let's make a 5-year plan. Let's try and, do the best we can. Now, obviously, we make these plans and then say something else, it becomes more of an emergency than what we budgeted for, then maybe we need to adjust that plan to take care of the emergency. But at least within the next 5 years, we would have an option to try and get our sewer system to where it's not on emergency running, because from our understanding, it's pretty much any second it could blow type thing. It's a bomb, time bomb. So we said, okay, we can't fix that overnight, but let's try and fix it over 5 years. So we took and we got amounts from him. Keep in mind, these amounts could change as time goes on. Of course, we have new tariffs and all these things that we might have factors in, as well as inflation. So with all those things, we were able to kind of average things out, maybe take a little bit more of a blunt this year because they were more emergency items that we really are on major borrowed time on. But then over the next 5 years, try and even things out to do some regular repairs. So we kind of put together a 5-year plan. With that 5-year plan, again, we looked at what the expenses would need to be and what the income would need to be, and kind of tried to project that we would maybe have to use some of fund balance right now to pay for some of these things, but over the next 5 years, we could start replacing some of that fund balance. And so with that being said, we are projecting about, if we do what we've suggested, our income would be about 2.2 million.
keep in mind that, 577,000 of that is your Central Weber Sewer District, sorry. Yeah, I'm used to saying Davis too, so, because that's Davis County, but, so with that being said, that income is directly offset by the expense. So whatever they charge us is what we're trying to pass through to the citizen. Is that in money in, money out type thing. The other expense or other revenue sources, you know, like I said, the revenue, we would be at 2.2. Then we come down here and we look at our operating expenses. Operating expenses, we are estimating about 1 million on that. Some of that is relating to breaking things out a little bit more, some allocating things, and also 75 of that is your impact fee study. So
What is their line for?
we have the ARPA funds that we still have that we can spend. I really should call that reserve expense because we wanted to make sure we didn't get in trouble with ARPA. So we said that we had spent those in the way that we were allowed to, which we definitely have, but we have just reserved that money still to the side. So we do have that money that we could spend on some repairs.
Allocated, because Jared had given you that a few years ago when we had the ARPA money, and that's to replace that manhole. So you see that is in there too with the manhole, and that was at the north main, or the north sewer station. That's Cammy, where in here does it show our payment we make for our sewer payment? Is it in there somewhere?
All right.
Our loan payment, okay.
To me, the soft chart.
We could go get you a softer chair, Debbie.
I just need to.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, oh, yeah. I'll trade that out for her when she comes back.
Man, let me push you around. It's fun.
There you
go. It'll be a good time. Hang on, sister.
So then we have, so as far as operating expenses, really, we haven't increased them. Let's see, real quick here. Just gonna add these up without the impact fee study. You're looking at 928, just as an idea. And then your system maintenance would be 77,500. Jared was expressing that some of these maintenance items have become more expensive because it is aged. So hopefully we can stay better on top of those. Then our equipment, we have 569. A big chunk of that is depreciation. You'll notice that 525, which is always kind of a fictitious crazy number. So, but we have to budget for that. And then our employees, we added an additional employee as well. So that brought us to 315 or 314,900. So our total operating expenses, we're looking at 1.9. And then we have 407 as capital projects and 530 as our loan payment. So our total expenses would be 2.9. So really this year with everything, we would have to use about 631,000 of fund balance. However, our cash, because of depreciation, it's not really cash. Our cash would only go down by about 106,000. And right now within, as of April, our sewer fund has, sorry, I just can't add this high in my head and late at night, no, without a diet.
Without a diet.
We are a little bit over
3.7, so we have enough cash to use to fund that. So. Any- Yeah. Any questions, concerns, discussion on sewer? And we've tried to not do a gigantic increase, but, you know, I think we're gonna have to do some considering our system.
Can you show the 5-year plan?
The 5-year,
So,
sewer plan. Yeah.
Are we gonna be questioned or rejected that we pass that utility fee or whatever, or maybe we question, but so people just, okay, but we're paying this utility fee now, I'm increasing this, maybe it's- or paying it, like.
Well,
like a double dip or like,
The utility fee is only a general fund operating thing, whereas these are different services that it's relating to. But I think you could very easily be questioned about that. Very good question, very good thought process. But by all means, so yes, you could be questioned. That would be my reply, is that you're not comparing apples to apples, but not everybody would understand that. Yeah. And unfortunately, until you dig into governmental accounting, you really don't see what goes into it. I mean, it's foreign. People look at me as I'm deer in the headlight. And I get it. Yeah. So fun, huh? Expenditure instead of expense. What? Yeah.
Residents will look through this. You never know if they will or not, you know? I mean, that they will actually see that that money is needed, that it's not that we have an abundance of money. I mean, most of these accounts, by the time, as you see, we went into the hole and then we're transferring fund balance money to even make it. You take our total expenses and our total income and we're in the hole. So, but you don't know how much they'll really look at it.
Yeah. Or understand.
Or understand it.
Yeah, they won't look at this part, they won't look at wages.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know,
they don't want to know how much everything costs, they just want.
That's why I just don't like those.
Well, and you look at the total amount of income we have coming in and you think pay 1/4 of that, we pay to the sheriffs. You know, you have another 2/3 of that we're paying to our sewer. It's not like I mean, 2.9
Yeah.
just the expenses on the sewers.
Unfortunately, that sewer system that we have, I mean, I don't think anybody will
Special.
argue. It's an expensive system, unfortunately, and I wasn't here. I don't know the whole options, but it is what it is, and you know,
How many other cities in the state operate on that thing? Specifically.
I don't know of any. My understanding is there's very few in the nation.
So I think there's other in the east, 1 or 2 in the east.
Yeah, it's its own system.
It was this great special.
Yeah.
Well, and I've asked a few times why we had it, and they said, well, at the time it was less expensive because like they didn't have to dig as deep, you know, to have everything gravity fed. The pipes would have had been a lot deeper. So they felt like this maybe was a good option. And they really didn't know because no one else had it. And the problem is, you know, people's, yeah. And one of the things that happens with it too is you have, like, I'm learning more than I ever did, but you have these force main and it is gravity fed. Then like what we're replacing up on 5100, then the sewage no one has food. So, but it doesn't just sit in the pipe. The way ours is, it just sits in the pipe and then it has that, what is it? Whatever gas was, S24, whatever gas, then it just it eats away and it's hard on the pumps, it's hard on everything.
Anytime you add that sludge to the system, you've got more
But from now on, we're not doing any more at the vacuum. They're all going to be these lift stations that'll all be gravity fed. I mean, the city's not allowing that anymore. Central Weaver's not allowing that, but unfortunately, we are still stuck with the ones that we have. Yeah,
They weren't very open to looking at other things either. I came to some of those meetings because I thought it was, well, I had just been in that Hurricane Katrina and seen what backed up stuff happened. And so I thought that's not a good idea because if you lose your vacuum, but they really, they liked that and that, I said, let's look at something else, but they were kind of dead set on it at the time, so.
yeah. Well, and we still owe so many other we still owe a lot of $1 million, $7 million, plus
Is
that, what is it now down to? It's,
6.550
yeah.
that we got.
So we still owe that much. So it's not like we can say, well, let's invest in something else. And sewer and we can't. Like I talked to Margaret Central Weaver. I said, okay, what if we tried to do something like the bird refuge or something that it could be gravity fed? We can't afford that. The amount of money, you go through a budget that we just did because we just did the tentative budget and there's millions and millions of dollars. So we can't afford, we can't afford to do anything else than we have right now, other than I feel like we're doing really good because we're putting money in to maintain Jared's 5-year plan. Hey, let's have an extra pump. So if a pump goes down, we have something. We have all the extra stuff.
And, the good thing about the impact fee study is that if we can increase our sewer rates, we have more money to pay off our debts.
Yeah.
Which if we pay off our debts with more money, then we have an option. We either don't charge as much increase in sewer fees, or we continue with the sewer fee increase and pay off our debt sooner.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's, some decisions that option down the road.
That is an interest-free loan.
Yes. So it may not be the best idea to pay it off early, but just depending upon what you're doing, But yeah, definitely a discussion to have. Yes.
Enough money to pay it off, then certainly we could lower our rates, which is kind of what they told us to begin with. Oh, once we have that paid off, it'll go down. Well, no, and it should have been gradually going up, and it was. But anyway.
So, any questions on that or additional discussion? Or anything?
You're right, Sherry. You can go on 2 more weeks, you're gonna get a raise, you'll be certified. So.
Super.
Stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned a little more.
What we should also.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just, if it's okay, I'm gonna go around and just ask specifically each person if there's any reason that they could not feel comfortable with this budget. I'm not asking for a vote because we're not doing roll call. This will be, I want you guys to really specifically tell me if there's a reason that you don't, because this is your budget. It's not my budget. So at the end of the day, if I'm not providing you something that you can feel good about, then I maybe am not doing the best I can, which I will sure you I am trying. So I'll just start with Lisa because she's right there. Lisa, do you have anything or any concerns?
I don't think so. I think we've been.
Okay, fantastic. Ryan?
Nothing except council reimbursements. That's my thing. I mean, that one we come to just for this. And everybody's okay, just all of this. My time is pretty valuable. I don't know what everybody else is good. We're the lowest paid in Weaver County and probably Davis County. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for an increase for the council after 25 years.
What was your initial ask? So because right now we get 120, and then 25 for each council to attend, right?
Correct. So it's maximum 150 a month.
Right.
If you
But it
come
seems like we do participate in a lot more outside that we're not
you
compensated.
just participate in search, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's things we do get compensated for, like fire and mosquito,
Right.
different stuff. But, I mean, if we're gonna have these kind of meetings, that's frequency like we are, we're meeting a whole lot more than just twice a month.
Keep in mind too, just as a side note of something I've seen, just from my experience, not saying I know all, so by all means, but, if you have your council and your, mayor positions at too low of a rate, you have a hard time getting people to actually want to serve in those positions. And you gotta realize, like Ryan says, his time is valuable and everybody's time is valuable. What can we do to try to, not saying we have that problem, but keep that in mind that you could possibly, maybe down the line, have that, somebody saying, well, I would sure love to serve on council, but I can go get something else and not give my community anything back, and, it's not worth my time, basically.
Couple of thoughts. We have that 9,600 that's sitting there that we said we didn't know what to do, that's in that budget for that emergency management that really, we don't even know what that's for. Another thought too, Harrisville only does one council meeting a month. And I said, how do you do that? And she said, we just do. She said, if we need to have a second council meeting, we do. And she said, so she's been the mayor now for 8 years and is going to run again. And she said they do one meeting a month. And I hadn't really thought of that, but maybe that is an option, rather than, and like she said, sometimes they've had to have a second one, but not always. And that could be a consideration. That would of course be an ordinance change.
So that would have to change a little bit too, because right now it's 10 or fewer items. So sometimes that could
Mhm. Yeah.
bump up if you're only doing one a
But
month.
sometimes there's not. Sometimes we don't have a lot of things,
Yeah.
and some months we do just have one meeting. But I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that's an option. I never really thought of that. But she said that's worked well for them, and sometimes smaller cities they do just meet once a month. And I can't remember what the amounts were on that.
What do you think, Brian? Arden's wage.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Stuff goes on.
I gotta tell you.
15 right here. And
It's too.
12 here.
I don't know, everybody's so used to two.
Well, I asked her, I said, how did you do it? And she said, I just said, we're only going to start having one a month. And she said, and they changed. And she said, occasionally you'll have a developer that will say, what? But now, because planning commission, they just do one a month, and they're the ones that are mainly approving the,
It's not in council anymore.
yeah, it's not us that are necessarily dependent on that with the developments.
Yeah.
Commission's thinking of that part.
What he just said, because I think he said like 150 and then 25. I get something like that.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For each additional
Right.
meeting. And that's how you track it.
Right.
So I think it'd almost be easier just to say 150 plus 50 a meeting or 25. I mean, I don't know. If we go to once a month, then we could say 150 plus the 50 for the meeting, make it 200.
This is just an idea too. So I was, we have a nephew that's on Syracuse's city council. So I was listening to them. They do their work meetings separate. So I was watching one of their work meetings. So they have a work meeting and they have citizen comments at the work meeting. So people can come give comment at the work meeting, and they say, then like the mayor was saying, okay, that's something we could consider having on our agenda then. So maybe we could have one work meeting a month and one city council meeting a month. And at the work meeting, then people come, give their comments of what they would like to see on our agenda at the city council meeting. I mean, that really doesn't help. But by the time we are doing the 2 hour work, you know, and that was me because I felt like there's always so much to talk about and we don't really have time. But if we maybe had a 2 hour work meeting and then one city council, maybe residents, if they could come to our work meeting, sounded good to me because people stood up and said, oh, I have this concern. He said, okay, great. We'll have that on our next agenda.
And so your council meeting is just more so decision
Yes.
and making those motions.
Yeah.
And really at that point, you should have those decisions made.
Yeah. But I know sometimes change is good. Sometimes change isn't. Resident, sometimes it's something to get used to, but just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean that we can't change, and a change might be good. But you add up the difference in that. So you take their 6,000, 9,000, and then, you know, you have $10,800. Well, we have that 9,600 that we don't even really know what it is. We're really not having to come up with a lot of additional money if we decided to do that.
10,000.
Yeah, 10,800.
Right, discussed before.
So if we did have 2 meetings still, then the max would be 250. It'd be 150 plus 50 for each meeting. The max would be 250.
Well, I was against it, but I'm open to looking into it. And then it was just $1,000 a month for the mayor. And then.
And maybe we could look at, because I was surprised at their work meeting. It was packed because, and they had their comments and then people said, so I don't know. I mean, that is an option we maybe could.
So you wouldn't put everything on the agenda that somebody said, you just, whatever the
Yes.
council wanted
Mhm.
to entertain.
Yeah, for the next meeting. So they had an agenda of what they were going to talk about with their work meeting, because and then people would come and say, but then they could come and say anything, you know. But no, you wouldn't have to be obligated to put it on. It would be if you felt like that was something that you wanted to put on the
And
agenda.
you still have public comment. for the council meeting,
Mhm.
'cause you-
Yeah, you'd have to. Mhm.
That you do it at the end. Wouldn't have to do it up front.
Yeah, it's a junk and it's-
Yeah, work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Something to think about. But this would still leave enough money in there that if you'd still have 2 meetings, would just maybe be, like I said, be splitting out. One would be a work and one would be a council. And it'd probably still be about the same amount of time. It's just, well, maybe even less time. Because now we have that whole hour of work and then sometimes 2 of council. Maybe I don't know.
and so rather than try and keep track of all the extra stuff, go on. $100.
Come on.
Because I don't think any of us signed up for this for the money.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
No.
Anybody. Yeah. You know what, citizens need to give anybody that's willing to run for this position the absolute respect. Because it's a penny an hour. So would you like me to change those budget meeting or budget information back to those amounts? Yeah, the 15, and then that.
Well, you know,
Commission was.
I think we increased the commission too, didn't we? We ended
Yeah.
up giving them.
It was, I can't remember what it was. It was.
Yeah, 50 and then 25. 50, 25.
15, 25, so 75.
So I think we do 75 a month
And 25.
plus 25 a meeting?
It's gonna be 20. Increase.
Or did we keep it monthly the same and encouraged them to come to the meetings?
I think that was what we did. We were saying that it was 50 a month, 50 a month, and then $50 a meeting.
Okay.
And that you did say at one point that you wanted it to be meetings in person. Is that still, I guess you can evaluate that as you make the executive decision.
Well, the only thing is like, when I was off of my surgery stuff, I still with Zoom, and sometimes that's the only way you can attend it. I don't think you should be penalized if you're physically unable to come to the meeting, but you still take the time to attend the meeting. You're still using the time. Otherwise, yeah, you're prepping for it, you're doing
And
all the
that's
things that you would if you were here in person. You're just not physically able to come to a meeting. And I mean, you know, I don't think anybody would have enjoyed if I'd have come down here with COVID.
Well, that's why we have 3 as a quorum. You know, so we can excuse 1 or 2, it's one's on up for a vacation or illness or whatever it is. You know,
So,
we don't require everybody to be here every time.
so you'd rather someone not be here than be on Zoom.
It's just from sitting up there and having the loud speaker,
Well, if we
not
could
knowing
turn
what's
the,
gonna interject.
if we could have the speaker turned down. you
Well,
know.
just, cause I don't feel like Zoom, you're in a conversation or you're in the discussion as you are in person. I mean, when necessary, absolutely, Zoom's an option. If we need a forum and somebody can only do Zoom, absolutely.
That,
But I
okay,
think-
then I won't attend by Zoom if I get sick again.
Well, I think there's a state ordinance.
There is a state ordinance that
Or sickness.
for
I don't
sickness,
know what for.
for any means you are to have available electronic means to attend meeting for all city council.
And that's the state, did you
That's a
say?
state code. My daughter-in-law got it for me.
It's probably been since COVID.
It's been since COVID.
COVID, since,
It came
Yeah,
out during,
COVID was a whole different church.
Yes. and it's still in effect. And that's why I used Zoom when I couldn't walk, you know, if there wasn't a way I could get in here. But I still felt like I wanted to be part of the council. I didn't want to be absent the whole time just because there was still a quorum without me. You know, I didn't want to just not be here, you know, and say, well, there's a quorum. So since I'm on Zoom, I don't count.
I think we all try to get here. This, we do our best, but, I did Zoom. Yeah, I agree. It's not the same.
No.
Yeah,
However, I think there's an avenue that the state's provided us in rare circumstances. We should be able to use that and not penalize.
Sure.
Cause you're legit, you were sick and tied up or laid up in bed.
I
So
mean,
you realize that, I think now you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, for 2 years, I came to all the meetings, in
Yeah.
person.
well, maybe
So I
like,
don't see-
like you said, it just needs to be like on rare occasions, probably. Like everybody do their best they can to be here, but we
Right.
just need to make sure that we're not,
Abusing it.
yes, because it is difficult.
That's never happened, though. I don't think anybody's really get that.
No, I mean, I honestly.
There's been very few times.
Our last meeting too, we needed, I don't know, were you on Zoom?
No, I was here.
There was
2 times ago.
2 times ago with Dell,
2 times ago.
Sherry, and then
Mhm.
you were on.
Couldn't
So
wait.
we needed you for the core, not your business.
Mm.
Your graduation.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have, I
So
wouldn't
we'll
have saved it. I saved so much meeting, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, okay, so does everybody feel okay about that? Are you good with that? You'd be able to approve that if how do we do that though now? Because we changed that last time, then can that also be changed before we
Yeah.
publish it?
Make sure that we do the public hearing.
Okay,
Just remind me.
Yeah.
So.
Is everybody okay if I put that in?
How it was originally.
Yes. So it'd be $150 a month, $50 a meeting, and $1,000 a month for the mayor, no additional for extra meetings. And then the planning commission, $50 a month with $50 a meeting. Everybody okay with that? Going once, going twice? Sold. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue around then. Dell, it's your turn. Anything that you have questions or concerns about?
You know, original, but I did have some questions about, you know, expenses that we've incurred that I felt like was kind of a, should have come to the council.
Okay.
That we just really didn't ever know until after it was done.
Okay, so that would be something you would address with changing your ordinance on how that is worded or how that's looked at. Not necessarily the
So I
budget.
guess I've got a question about that. So let's say if the mayor hires someone
Mhm.
and it changes the budget, like if now all of a sudden we're paying a lot more money out than we did before.
Then-
So how does that work? Because
So
I thought that had to come to council to increase that amount of money.
I'm not schooled in all your ordinances. So I'm not going to say that, you know, the ordinance says this, because I don't know. But typically in a city, you, like I said, we need to kind of more so look at approving a position instead of a person.
Well,
So, and so I think that would eliminate
I think you
the
meant-
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Changing.
Yeah.
We have hired people for a position we didn't even have before.
yeah. And if that's the case, then we need to change, you know, our ordinance to say, okay, we're going to approve positions or, you know, as part of, like I said, as a goal going forward, that we would do that as part of the budget process, that we would approve position, not necessarily
New
new.
job title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I explained, you know, at our city council meeting, if I would have hired somebody and they would have been paid more, that would have been something that would have had to have came to the city council because we would have had to have amended our budget. But that wasn't the case. And I went through, if you want me to go through this with you, because we spent some time going through this. So for example, we ended up, so back when it was, we had accounting that was working and we had Teresa that was doing a job. So I can go back as far as 2021. So we had accounting and Teresa that came to $74,639. Then the 2022 accounting and Teresa, because increases with Teresa's wages, was $86,470.
How much was that per hour? Do you have that?
We can go back and get that.
Because that seems a little higher than.
That, yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Huh?
And
Oh, including benefits.
including benefits, because that, it
Okay.
comes out of the budget. Yeah. So then 2023 with accounting and budget, with accounting and Teresa, it was $96,815. 2024 accounting and Teresa was $115,483. 2025 with accounting and Monica, it was $91,820.
But she's.
So we didn't spend more. No, so when I say accounting, we're talking accounting and Monica. So it actually was a decrease of 24,000. So it wasn't more.
Now,
So-
Well, but we've got Pam in place, Teresa, right?
Exactly. So she's the accounting. So when I say accounting, we're talking about what we pay Child Richards and what we pay our employee.
Are we paying Child Richards more now?
So we're paying a little more, but we're paying Monica so much less. So Teresa's wages were $95,000, including benefits, $413.81. Monica's wages were
How much
$33,838.
are we paying these guys? for Teresa?
Yeah, so we have that. So you go through the accounting. So that's one thing we're paying them more now. But like, if you go back as far as 22, we were paying for Child Richards $17,290. 23, $17,000. 90, 24, 20,070, 25, it's gone up. So that was 57,000, but you take the difference in the wages of 95,000 and 33,000, we still are $24,000 less now than it was with Teresa.
So what about the employees that we didn't have before?
Okay, so what we did then, so when Teresa quit, Bryant quit, we had a total. So when I say we, me, I sat down with Jared, sat down with Morgan. So we had all of these wages, and I took how many dollars an hour we had. So we had Teresa, how much she got paid $1 an hour. We had Bryant, how much he got paid $1 an hour. We had our road supervisor, that all that road supervisor was always in our budget. We just never filled that position. So we had like $125 an hour that we could actually have people pay, and it wasn't going to make our budget be any more. So we had Monica. So instead of Monica gets paid half of what Teresa gets paid. We had Bryant, but we have Malcolm, because you compare the differences. Bryant's wages came to $140,189. Malcolm's wages come to $87,000. So the only position
Include benefits.
include
Both of
benefits.
But
Include
now we're paying
benefits.
JUB because now
No, we're not. So you have general engineering. We paid back in 2021, we had paid 116,000. 2022, general engineering and Bryant, we paid 186,000. 2023, general engineering and Bryant, we paid 271,000. 2024, general engineering and Bryant, we paid 223,000. This year, general engineering and Malcolm, it came to 181,000. So we're not. So, and the only additional employee we have is we now have Jamie, who is part-time. And so even with Jamie part-time, Monica full-time, it still doesn't come up with the amount that we were paying Teresa. And Malcolm does not make
Well,
as much as,
the year that we paid Bryant and JUB, Bryant was only here for a few months.
no, Bryant started in 2022. So we paid him all of 20. So Bryant worked here for 2 years.
Well, I mean, that one,
Oh, the first year, the 2021, when it was only 116. Yeah, that was just JUB. That wasn't. And then the next year, when it was JUB and Bryant, that's when it went up to 186. The next year it went to 271, 223. And then when it was general engineering and Malcolm, it went down to 181. So that the only employee we have that we didn't have before, as far as like, if you take, manpower, is Jamie, who is part-time.
So I would encourage you more so to come up with a list of, the position and the range, and have the council approve employee positions and ranges, and then that would take care of your concern, I believe. Yeah, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that take care of your concern though, if we did that?
Okay, since we're on this subject, so,
And I understand, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Just-
Yeah.
You said generally.
Yeah.
There's so many categories.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
sewer and stormwater. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
How much total engineering?
So that's what I tried to do, was so we could compare apples to apples, because I went across the board with general engineering, because stormwater differs, and we know stormwater this year is a lot more. You have sewer. So some years, like back in 23, we paid $29,605. 22, we paid $61,941 for sewer. This year, we paid $17,019 for sewer,
But our stormwater went up.
but our stormwater went way up. Let's talk capital projects. That's like the 5,500. You go back to 22, we paid 274,000, almost 275, 274,954 in capital projects. 23, we paid 216,000 capital projects. 24, we paid 218, and this year we paid 165 projects. So our engineering really, so the only way I could kind of compare because what Bryant didn't do the stormwater, he didn't do the sewer, he didn't do the capital projects, he did the general because that was reviewing subdivision. That's what Malcolm's doing. So that's why I compare general to try to compare, because it's not, like Jared said, someone has to do our storm. It's not an engineer, it's not a planner, it is, I mean, it's not an in-house engineer, we have to use somebody like JUB.
You have to have somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is.
Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm happy,
No, yeah.
yeah, we,
So back probably 3 months ago, maybe 2.5 anyway, we generated some requests that we wanted. But I'll just go with first because we're talking about some of them. So detailed invoicing from Reed and Brandon Richards, which includes who contacted them and what was it regarding for the past 12 months. Reed did give that to me. It was verified by him that the council and commission spent 2 hours this time for this year.
and they also said too that they don't always write it down, because they told me that too.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let me just go.
Yeah.
So also we requested total amount spent on engineering and cost, JUB invoices itemized since Brian quit. Total amount spent on accounting services since Teresa quit. So did it take this kind of an effort to get that information? I think if we would have had that information prior, we probably could have avoided a lot of stuff. So in my mind, it just like, man, what are we trying to cover up, if anything? Why can't we just be transparent? I think that's what we're all after, is transparency. And if those are true numbers, then great. But why did it take this kind of an effort to get that? And then also, so I do have a few issues, but anyway, and then we also asked that we did get collected utility tax. I'm satisfied with that. And then we do have 3 possible litigations pending, that I've got some information on those too, but, the one that we have brought up tonight is this $100,000 grant.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not saying that I'm against this, however, I read it and it sure appears to me that someone that's not a resident of Portland drafted it. There's some commitments in there that I'm a little bit concerned about. Just for example, streamlining regulations.
What page are
reimagine
you
our
on,
future.
Brian?
Page 2.
Okay,
So they want us to reimagine our future. It says it's time to elevate Hooper City. We must preserve our unique identity and rural character while strategically investing commercial and economic development opportunities in carefully selected areas. This project will transform our zoning ordinances and future land use maps to create a thriving and sustainable future for our community. Also, it says we must update our design standards, which I am 100% for.
okay, what page are you on?
I'm just kind of doing my highlights.
Oh, okay,
Really, I'm just some of the things that it says we must, we will. It says to achieve this, we will refine zoning and land use maps, streamline ordinances, coordinate with UDOT and WRFC. So our plan coincides with their strategies as well, which is fine. And then the one that really kind of like, it says in here.
what page again?
This is page 6.
Okay.
The second last paragraph says, we've already seen commercial development growth with our new Smith's grocery store expected to begin construction in 2025. So obviously.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't, are familiar with what's going on in the city. So, I'm not against this. What I'd like to do is, call WRFC and just ask them like, what are your expectations? It just sounds like we're opening the general plan.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. I'm all for, doing some like we should on a yearly basis. We should take a look at it and make some changes. I don't know if it's time to do that, or we should look at commercial design. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's something we need to do, but it appears to me that someone that lives in Utah County has came and put this template here in Hooper they talk about a sustainable community where you can walk, work, and recreate right here.
Yeah.
That's not us. That's not gonna work here. Unfortunately, it's just not us. We're unique. We're totally different than everybody else. So I'm a little bit concerned about the commitment that this $90,000 they're asking us to do. So I would like, before I ever approve this, I would like a little more clarity on what's the expectations.
So
of
the
this.
commitment, if you read right at the top, this is a technical planning assistance. That's what it is. Hooper City zoning ordinance and design standards update. I wasn't involved with this, but I think you were, Dell, when you applied for a grant to write the general plan last time, right? Wasatch Front Regional Council. So when they came to talk to us about this, they said, we cannot apply for a grant to rewrite your general plan because you already have received money from Wasatch Front Regional Council to write your general plan. What this is to look at it and see if changes need to be made. Just like last time, you were not committed to do anything that Hooper didn't want to do, correct? Like they didn't make you do any kind of zoning that you didn't want to do. It's the same with this. That's what it is.
I will say that a ton of things that WFRC.
Wanted us to do.
But you didn't have to, correct?
We finally said, you know
Yeah.
what? We don't need it anymore. Because they want us, all these things.
Yeah.
It was just overdone.
Yeah.
So my question to WRFC, like, hey, we want to focus on this part, this part, and this part of our general plan. We're not necessarily interested in revamping
Yeah.
everything.
And that's exactly, for $100,000, you couldn't do that anyway. This is more design standards, just like it said. And if you go through and it says the project name, Hooper City zoning ordinance and design standards update. That's what it's saying. Our project name is, project type then is updates, design standard updates, general future land use map updates. It includes public involvement.
But
So-
what does it update?
Well,
Does that change? or-
well, it maybe because like it said in here and everybody knows, we are having West Weaver corridor come through Hooper. When the general plan was done, there was nothing was put in place at all in our general plan for that. If there's,
Yeah,
so if
do
there's,
we know exactly where it's going?
we do. So
Where's it going?
5,100.
Is it going straight down 5,100?
So-
5,100 still going to be the.
So 5,100 is going to be a frontage road. Whether they put it on the west side or the east side of 5,100 is still up to debate.
How many- how
They
many
haven't
lanes?
said
That-
Yeah, they bought all the land on the east side.
So what they're saying is it will possibly go on the west side till it gets past where the canal is, then it'll switch and go on the east side. Because that's where they bought the land on the east side and it's beyond the canal. They're going to have to pipe the canal anyway, but they don't want to take any chance of interfering with our holding, where the Hooper irrigation has where they hold that. So 5,500 is going to come off, but is there anything we want to make? All this is are updates. I mean, and an update, Dale, to your question is, then we go through and look, and say, okay, is this exactly how we still want it? We were supposed to have been reviewing our general plan every single year. We really haven't. And as I mentioned last time, they don't expect this to be completed until January 31st of 2027. By then, we really are to the point that we should be really looking at some changes. And some cities really do every year, like West Point, for example. Every year they go through their general plan and they say, does it still work? We've had people that have suggested that. Maybe we should have said, okay, we have sewer available in this area. Maybe this should be half-acre lot. There's not sewer available here, then maybe it shouldn't be. So maybe those are some things that we're looking at. Do we need to add more commercial somewhere? Do we want commercial a little more along if 5,500 is going to be an off-ramp, which it is? 4,000 is going to be an off-ramp, which it is. Do we want to have more commercial? And if we do, we have no commercial standards at all. Nowhere here do we have any commercial standards. They will never force us to do anything that we don't want to do. And I'm in Wasatch Front Regional Council meetings now every month. I'm on one of their committees, and there's not a month that I don't have at least one meeting. So May, I just can't see why we would give up $90,000 if someone's here willing. And like it mentioned in here, there'll be the same thing as before, open houses, there'll be committees, everything like it talked about. But we're not redoing the whole general plan. This is not nearly enough. And like it mentions, if you want to turn to page 5, and it says update design standards, refine zoning and land use maps. It's not saying completely, it's saying refine if there's anything we need to, streamline ordinances. One thing, like we mentioned before with our storm drain, we know there's ordinances that says, so maybe there's some that we, with new design standards, we coordinate with UDOT, Wasatch Front Regional Council. One thing I would really like to see us do, which we haven't, we don't have any biplanes at all. So we work with them and say, could we have biplanes? Because like Debbie and I, we've gone to these, when they talk about Wasatch, the vision, they have biplanes that come down 5,600, they get to the Hooper and they stop. They have all these connecting trails, but they get to Hooper and they stop. And so all those meetings we go to would draw them on and say, well, what good does that do us? So anyway,
So to answer your question, to clarify, there's no file for receiving this money. There's nothing we're forced to do.
No.
For the 90,000, correct?
No.
This is guidance.
It-
that's
yes.
available.
Yes, and then that's money, then this grant will pay to have open houses or for a planning commission to send out, surveys. And I kind of did a little research, for, Ryan, because last time you'd said about, it mentioned about it going out 26,000. So the population in 2010 was 6,932. In 2020, it was 9,123. So it did go up considerably more than the 26%. If it goes up 37%, it'll go, because we went from 9123, we were actually at 98.7. From 2010, we went from 6932 to 2020, we went to, well, we're currently we're about 9,600 something. In 2020, we were 9,123.
We built the entire north side.
Yeah. So it went from 6932 to 9123. If it would have only gone up to 26%, we would have been at 8734, but we were at 91. So what they're saying is by 2030, if we go up an additional, they're thinking we're going to go up to 12,499. Will we? I don't know, but we're already probably to 10,000. So we're saying in the next, 15 years, will we go up 2,000 people? We might.
I'll get you the percentage of deliveries increase between 2010 and 2020
Yeah.
and see if it even compares.
Well, but you're talking delivery increases and we're talking population.
Homes versus people are about the same.
Well, no, because you deliver into a home, but that home could have 6 people,
Or two.
or it could have 2.
Average is
But this is going by the census numbers, and you can look them up as well. So
It just seems like there's a definite idea and change here, just the way this is written. Hooper's abundance of large lots, farmland, open spaces presents a unique opportunity to develop a safe and efficient transportation network. This includes planning new road routes, which we've already got a plan,
Yeah.
for vehicles and prioritizing alternative routes for bikes, which you mentioned,
Yeah.
pedestrians, equestrian.
Yeah,
horses,
would
and
be
areas where-
great. Yep. I think that'd be great. Don't you to have equestrian routes? The horses?
Well,
Yeah.
we've tried that. We've
Yeah.
already tried that. And
Yeah.
they did, the two didn't mix, walkers and horses and bikers, they didn't mix.
Yeah.
They got mad at each other. Anyway, so we've been, but then it says, we have already seen commercial development growth with the new Smith's grocery store expected to begin construction in 2025.
Yeah, and that will happen in 2020.
So where did that come from? I mean,
So when they came back and met in December, they had talked about, is there going to be a Smith's? Maybe, maybe not. But if not a Smith's, maybe some other commercial. Hooper Water
So-
is talking about selling off their frontage, you know, to theirs and putting in commercial.
Right, so this was applied for back in December.
So
Right.
December 4th, and I think I gave you these dates last time. December 4th was when JUB staff came and said, we have this technical planning assistance grant that you could apply for. So we had a week turnaround that the grant had to be submitted December 11th. We didn't know until March 14th that we had been awarded it. And then the next meeting we had as city council, because we didn't have the second one in March, we discussed it in our budget meeting like multiple times. And so then our next step is we have to draft a preliminary scope before it goes out to RFP. It has to go to RFP because it's for $100,000. They have to do an RFP and have different consulting firms. Malcolm said he's already had a few that have contacted him, like the Hanson Group, that did artwork before, you know. Anyway, he's had a few. And then after they do that, then the request goes for the RFP. Then you can come back, review what consultant we want to use for it. And then we have to pay $10,000, but that would be in this budget. So that wouldn't be until July. And then we select a consultant. Tentatively, they're thinking of starting this August 1st, 2025, and end date tentative is January 31st, 2027.
So I guess the ultimate question from all of us maybe is where did this language come from?
The grant writer,
Writer at
Yes.
JUB.
somebody with JUB.
JUB came
Yeah.
up with all this.
Yeah, we met with them once, and there was a few of us that were in this meeting, and they asked us what they,
Yeah.
they really don't charge that much with a grant though, and that shows in that thing. Yeah.
There's a breakdown of where the fees are going. That looks like.
But we don't know that JUB will be the ones administering it because we have to put it on RFP. So it'll be whatever consultant you pick. So, yeah, and you're right, Ryan, we do a lot with JUB, but every city has an engineering firm that they do a lot with. They still have it full-time except for Ogden City, even with all their full-time engineers, still have a separate engineering firm. I don't know about Layton City. West Haven still does, most cities do. So if you were to talk to West Haven, there's a garden. So everything they have is gardening. Any other concerns? I did.
I was concerned when I read through this, it just, it was already applied for and I've never seen this like this.
Well, and when they applied, we had no idea if it was going to get it. And as soon as we knew that we did, I told you about it. Like you've known about this for quite a few months, since at least March, you've known about it.
But I mean, it's almost a question of, is it ethical to receive money for something that is not, or is false?
Well, yeah, but Ryan, I don't know what, but I don't,
I mean, I'm grateful for the money, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it's not, isn't truthful.
what, besides that Smiths didn't start, what are you saying in here isn't truthful? Like what specific is not truthful?
I mean, the Smith was number one. Right?
Well, yeah, because it didn't start, but deliverable public engagement, preserving Hooper City's rural character as a priority. Is that not true? We will engage residents, page 3. We will engage residents in open dialogue through public meetings and hearings. Is that not true? Ensuring their voices are heard throughout the planning process. Is that not true? This portion,
Hasn't happened.
but that's last thing we did. It isn't that what we did?
Yeah,
We
that.
did. You had public meetings and hearings.
But all of that they're describing is going to be taken away as you get further into this application.
So I guess I'm not reviewing it the same way you are. I don't know what you're even saying. Updating.
This before it went, before it was submitted. So
What, could we do this, like, it's in the budget, but just hold off on paying them until we really massage over it? Because we have to pay them 10 grand.
Yeah, and that won't be until July. So I guess,
I don't know, that's an option.
so I
Maybe
guess,
there's some things that we, aren't comfortable with. just make some adjustments. I don't know.
So do you want to start reviewing every grant? Because I wrote all those ramp grants and nobody asked to review them. Do
Well, I
you
think
want,
this one just has a bigger impact. You know, it
So-
affects everybody.
You wrote all Hooper's grants?
with staff? Yeah, we sat down with staff and we went through, they gave the numbers and we wrote them together. Yeah. So I don't see a concern because like I say, I've been in enough of Wasatch Front Regional Council. They're not going to come and make us do anything. I think it's a really good opportunity with money to get some commercial standards because we don't have any at all. That would be good. Yeah.
I agree with that part too.
And I think some of our zoning, we do need to look at. Is it still what we want it to be? Is it or not? We don't know. We have new planning commission members. Do they think, is it? We don't know.
I think
Well,
my
So-
They've never been asked. See, that's the thing.
Yeah, and then we'll ask them. When we're doing this study, they will be
Here's
asked.
one of my
Yeah.
concerns is this being driven by the developers, you know, hey,
Oh.
you don't
No.
have what I want to put on there, so let's hop onto that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not,
But I don't
there's,
think either.
well, this isn't driven by a developer. I can tell you that because when we sat in the meeting, there was not one developer. There was Jared, Malcolm, me. I can't remember if you were in that meeting
Yeah,
or not.
I realize.
Yeah.
The pressure from the legislation and developers,
No.
it trickles down to us.
Yeah.
Their ideas, concepts, they do, it's fine. So it's getting late, so I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
Just so you guys can get home. Um, So I wanted to bring this up, and I'm not gonna go into great detail, but, in our closed door meeting that we haven't had, hopefully we can still have that. I don't think.
We tried.
We tried, but I think the hitch was the mediator. So that was never, in Ryan's motion that got approved to have it. I think it was just the six of us to sit down and go through some things. So with that being said, we are, there's some litigation the city's facing. And, we have some exposure, and the mayor knows she's part of that.
And any litigation has to be talked about in a closed door.
That's
meeting.
right.
We can't talk about it here.
That's exactly right. That's why we need to have that, because that's one of my problems of just because of the exposure the city has. For me, if I'm going to approve this budget and all the things that, we learned some things tonight that I wish we would have 3 months ago. It would have made the process a lot easier. I think the budget, until this litigation is finalized and there's some resolution and it's over, I think the city council should be in charge of the budget. And we already discussed that Ryan, he would be the one. You look at it, he signs every check, looks at it, and we have an accounting of that. Because our city funds are at jeopardy. They really are. But that's what we need to talk about in this closed door meeting, because it's not a small matter. I reached out to Utah Trust and spoke with them, and they gave me all the information. And I actually haven't shared it with anybody. I told them I had it, but I haven't shared it with Dell, Ryan, Deborah, Lisa, anybody, but because I was trying to save it for that so we could discuss the issue at hand, because it's not insignificant. It's significant.
So Tuesday, Brandon and Reed set up a meeting with myself to go through all the litigations. There are multiple litigations, and
Right.
some of you are aware because you have depositions upcoming. So there's, yeah,
That's not what I'm talking about.
yeah.
I'm
So
talking about those are developer driven. This is in, in a capacity of your,
there,
title. that
yeah,
something
currently
happened.
there is not a lawsuit with me.
Well,
as bride.
I haven't.
Well,
So
you,
it's,
you wouldn't think that I would know because it involves
Yeah.
me. There is not. There is not a lawsuit.
Staff to me and all the details. So.
Exactly.
So
There
there's
is. So
something
I
that-
can explain this so everybody understands. in order for someone to sue the city, there has to be a notice of claim. There has been a notice of claim against River City on multiple lawsuits, but they haven't filed a lawsuit yet.
Those I'm not.
But even the one
So let me
you're,
ask you
me,
this.
yes, there
Have
has
you-
not been a
have you
claim.
Access Utah Trust to represent you, which is our insurance policy for our legal counsel.
And the claim was dropped. The claim was dropped. And
Who dropped the claim?
the other person's attorney, and I can show you the email that shows where the claim was dropped. Since that time, and I have to be really careful what I say, because again, this should be in a closed door
And maybe
meeting.
we should discuss it here.
We
Yeah,
should
let's
not discuss it. Yeah.
Like we agreed with.
So-
But again, and just let's bring that, because there really does need to be some kind of mediation, so something can be settled. To just have 6 people in there, and that's what we had lined up. Like, I've actually scheduled 3 different meetings. The one time you canceled it, the one time people said they couldn't, then the next time.
What do you mean, I
it was- I had a meeting set up with you and I, but let's get done, so
But
can we?
again, that was with a mediator, so
With a
we
mediator.
should have a lawyer present. Was I supposed to have a lawyer
The
present?
mediator is a retired judge, so he is a lawyer that is.
I know, but who is he? Who would represent you? and
Well,
who would
there's no
represent-
one.
Well, that's why you have.
With a
mediators. Well,
mediator
anyway,
is just to listen and,
we'll just-
or a moderator, if you want to say.
Yeah, I don't see spending city money for that. I mean, personally, I think that as adults, we can sit down and chat. I don't.
I think as long as it's a recorded meeting, then it can be any of us to sit in a closed door meeting, right?
Yeah,
And then 6 of us, whoever, as long as it's a recorded closed door meeting,
Right.
I think we can have it any time,
Mhm.
under any circumstance,
Yeah.
to discuss what
Mhm.
litigation, pending litigation, or personal character of another person.
Mhm.
Okay, so relating to the budget, not. to-
yes. I'm sorry, it got so far down.
Yeah.
What the administration of the budget.
Exactly. So if you have a concern with the administration of the budget, what you could do in the meeting is you could make your motion that we approve, if you're okay with the numbers and everything I've prepared, you could make the motion to approve the budget with a change in administration, how you, and specify that. Whether it be that council approves all expenditures before they go out, meaning that you get a expense, register and you have to sign off on that. You can make that motion that way, is the best of my understanding. Get an attorney, but
Yeah.
you could make that motion, and then if you were able to make a motion, something like that, are you okay with the numbers in the budget? Right. And Dale, I never did.
And again, we need to, that would be procurement, because right now that's what it is. Anything over 5,000 has to be approved by city council. That's already an ordinance. So,
But we've never-
But we never.
because
I don't want
yeah.
to bring this up.
Yeah, because
For the Smiths thing.
I brought that up about doing it, and I was told, no, I can go back because I recorded all of them. But anyway,
Just make that
Yeah.
motion and we start giving you the check register before we mail the check. Or give them, Ryan's supposed to approve them before they're distributed. That's
I
fine.
heard you requested. Seniors in that capacity. So, how did that happen?
Basically Morgan goes about getting that into place.
Did you glad you didn't raise?
so we already, and I was wondering, we already have 3 signers on checks. There's really no reason to have a city council member be a signer of the check.
I think it was just
Well,
this that we wanted to know what was going on.
yes, you are, but as
we went
far as the
about 5
financial,
months without-
it's me.
About 5 months
Yeah.
without getting any budgetary items, so.
Well,
It was at least 4 months.
It always takes a little
So-
bit before though the audit's done.
And
But anyway.
That's
We
not
just want to have a little more insight of what's going on, which
So
I don't see it.
We could do that a couple different ways. You could say, you know, that motion contingent upon Ryan being a signer, or that motion based upon you receive a check register, Ryan receives a check register, or that check register is, you know, administered or provided to all the council before, and maybe Ryan signs off on it before checks are mailed. So you could do something like that. If you were able to do something like that, you're good with the budget. But
Yeah, I appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, those are ordinance changes though we would need to do before.
Yeah.
Because it already had, that's an ordinance, it would have to do an ordinance change. So,
Dell, you okay then with everything? I mean, granted, I can only do certain things, but I can't work magic. But with what I can do, are you okay that I'm, you know,
Well, like I started out, I have been uncomfortable that there's been so much money approved or gone out for whatever reasons, and it didn't seem like the council was involved.
so maybe if like, you know, we change the ordinance and, you know, that motion was said that, you know, we're gonna change the ordinance, condition on changing the ordinance or something like that. We may have to consult legal counsel so that we make sure we get it sorted out.
Yeah.
But with that idea, are you good?
That's the condition, yes.
Okay, you're good.
That's the condition.
Okay.
No, she's not.
I'm not. Take it on. I'm not yet putting
because
that.
we agreed and then we got to our meeting and went to approve our preliminary and it got voted down. So we had like 12 hours of budget meetings and then you voted it down. So she wants to make sure.
There's reason and I voice it.
Yeah.
There was a specific reason why,
Yeah,
because this meeting should have happened a Monday ago or whatever. We requested that, but we're shot down, so.
well, that was,
That's not.
That's-
She would get her chat too. Everybody gets her chat.
I would like to know on page 3, why the training has gone up so drastic.
Part of that was to allow for the additional CDL stuff. So
Now,
we
isn't that
could,
figured in the wage thing?
we're going to use that as part of the wage. So what I will do is my intent, my understanding is with the 3% training and taking out the merit is I will consider that as part of that. So I'll take maybe the higher of the two.
Okay.
So that we make sure we have enough there, but then one will go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, of course, to balance the budget, I use the transfer to capital projects to make the balanced budget.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody. So I'll kind of implement those and then I'll maybe put updated tentative on it. It's not the approved tentative, but it's maybe, well, I'll somehow word it. So
All
that
right.
you all get a copy of it before we have our meeting. And if you have any reason that you cannot feel good about it, please reach out to me. Please, please, I'm begging you. So,
That's just a big, you know.
good question. Yeah, very good. Yes. Yes, very good.
That's Tuesday.
This would be Thursday.
June 17th.
Yeah, because it was
and
Juneteenth.
remember we have a meeting next Tuesday
With Terra
with Terra Strata to talk about
Just right, like 6 o'clock.
6
6
p.m. on
o'clock work. and
27th.
then- Yeah, 6 o'clock on the 27th and then 6 o'clock on the 17th.
6 o'clock on the 17th.
Yeah, June.
And what's that for?
It's just.
Since we can't have one on the 19th.
Is that
June 10th.
That holiday,
June 19th?
so we won't have a council meeting on the 26th.
I'm having it on the 17th. So that gives us time to get the budget done and it can be all approved, but get submitted to the state.
To the 17th, we had agreed. That would be better.
Okay.
To approve the budget.
No public.
Right?
I'll public notice everything on the 5th as well.
Here you go.
It's not my call. I'm good. Okay, thanks for humoring me. You gotcha. Did you laugh at answer? Happy to do it. So, yes, please, please. There is